Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today it is finally time for us to review The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on the Nintendo Switch. Or Switcher, as many people are calling it. This review was originally written by the superb Robert Ramsey, and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. Originally released on other platforms back in the space year of 2015, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt arrives on Nintendo Switch over 4 years later, and it's somewhat surreal to hold such a gigantic game in the palm of your hands. Ported over by Saber Interactive, this is The Witcher 3 in almost all of its glory. The same brilliant base game, the same incredible expansions, it's all here, and it's an impressive achievement. Many would argue that The Witcher 3 is one of the greatest role-playing games of all time. And me personally, Alex, yes. You fill the shoes of Geralt, an experienced monster hunter for hire who, at the beginning of the game, is tracking down a powerful sorceress and former lover named Yennefer. The initial scope of Geralt's adventure is limited, but after a couple of hours, the story slowly begins to unravel, producing a tangled web of world-ending danger, personal struggle, and political intrigue. The numerous narrative threads running through this 100-hour-long journey are brought to life by some of the most expertly crafted characters in video game history. Undoubtedly, The Witcher 3's biggest strength is its storytelling. Dialogue is detailed and nuanced, yet delivered with pinpoint precision. Every quest, whether it's tied to the main plot or just Geralt venturing out into the wilderness to claim some creature's head, is considered, focused, and nearly perfectly paced. We could spend hours gushing about the world building, the cast, and the writing of The Witcher 3, but the bottom line is that it remains an utterly engrossing experience. It's worth noting, however, that the title tackles some especially heavy and mature themes right from the word go. It's not an overwhelmingly dark game, humor is a key component to The Witcher 3's masterfully written script, but when the situation demands, it pulls no punches. Bloody violence, strong language, and scenes of a sexual nature are all part of the package. This ain't your grandma's RPG. If you're new to The Witcher, then don't worry about missing out on the first 2 games. Although Wild Hunt does feature numerous returning characters, this is a self-contained story. Plus, the title does a fantastic job of introducing Geralt's old acquaintances. One quick conversation later, and you'll feel like you've known them your whole life. Geralt himself is something of an established character. His goals and his underlying grizzled personality are already set in stone, ready for you to explore. However, you're still given the freedom to express yourself through the white-haired Witcher's dialogue options. Sometimes these options bring additional flavor to an exchange, and other times they can determine the outcome of a quest, and can have a lasting impact on the world or its inhabitants. There's an emphasis on choice and consequence throughout The Witcher 3, and the decisions that you're forced to make are very rarely black and white. In short, there's some gripping role-playing to be had here. In its ability to tell a story and present distinct personalities, CD Projekt Red's finest release is almost unmatched. But here in 2019, The Witcher 3's gameplay does show its age at times. Take the combat system, for example, which has been a hot topic for years. It's action-based, with Geralt able to attack using his swords, perform evasive steps, and cast magic known as signs. Fights tend to be fast-paced, but often patience is the name of the game. Learning the ins and outs of a monster's movements is the key to success, and knowing when to strike or use a specific sign or alchemical potion can be the difference between life and death. Combat is designed to be fluid but fairly technical, and for the most part, it's well worked and rewarding. The problem, though, is that Geralt's own movements can be a little bit unruly. A Witcher's swordplay is based on momentum, and so Geralt will often spin his way into a slash or slide into a stabbing motion. It takes some getting used to, and in particularly tricky battles, it means that you're often having to compensate for Geralt's lengthy animations. Don't get us wrong though, combat is nowhere near as bad as some would have you believe, but it does succumb to some annoying bouts of jank every so often. Speaking of jank, The Witcher 3 launched with performance issues on consoles back in 2015, and while they were fixed bit by bit, it's always been clear that this is a technically demanding game. It's by some miracle then that The Witcher 3 runs as well as it does on Switch. The visuals obviously have taken a substantial hit, and we'll get onto that more in a moment, but again, this is the full-fat, uncut experience running on significantly weaker hardware. So let's start with the frame rate. Capped at 30 frames a second in both handheld and docked modes, this release is surprisingly smooth. Even galloping at speed throughout the open world, we only notice minor drops. It's honestly hard to fault performance during regular gameplay. Transitioning between exploration, combat, and conversation is pretty much flawless, and the title's few load screens are quite short. Having said that, there are times when the frame rate briefly falls off a cliff. This usually happens during especially busy cutscenes, or when you're taking in the sights of a detailed location, like the bustling city of Novigrad. It's rough, but perhaps expected. Slightly inconsistent frame rate aside, sacrifices have of course been made to achieve this level of performance. There's a distinct blurriness to The Witcher 3 on Switch, and although it doesn't stop the game's top-notch art direction from shining through, it does take the edge off certain environments, and it can be difficult to pick out distant enemies or read an opponent's actions in battle. This is less noticeable when docked, but the trade-off is that on the bigger display, muddy textures and asset pop-ins stand out an awful lot more than in handheld mode. But make no mistake, this is still a lovely, lovely looking RPG when it wants to be. The world oozes atmosphere with dynamic weather effects, trees sway in the wind, storms light up the sky, and stunning sunsets will have you mashing your Switch's capture button. And adding to all of this is a superb soundtrack stuffed with incredible ambient music and a selection of intense battle themes to boot. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt remains a masterpiece, and being able to take such a grand and engrossing adventure with you on the go is something well worth celebrating. The Switch's Complete Edition is truly an impressive achievement, and although performance isn't perfect, it's still an incredible and impactful role-playing experience. The Witcher 3 set the bar for modern RPGs back in 2015, and this port is a startling reminder that it is yet to be bettered. Crumbs and blimey, it's time for my personal thoughts. Yes, Alex, it's my personal thoughts. Hello. Now, I've got to be brutally honest, when I first saw footage of The Witcher 3 running on Switch, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought it looked really muddy and blurry, and to be honest, you may even be getting that experience as you watch, the review and as you're looking at it, the footage now. But honestly, I couldn't really tell you what it is. I'm guessing maybe it's, I've got an idea of what it is, but when you're actually playing the game, yeah, it's still blurry, it's still muddy, and the resolution is not very high. However, you know what? It really stops being an issue amazingly quickly. I think maybe it's just because the world itself is so engrossing and things like shadows and lighting effects are still so there. Your brain just sort of just ignores it, and it's just like, it just starts filling in the blanks, and it's just like, it's The Witcher, that's a drowner, and it just gets on with it. You find, or at least I did personally, that it wasn't an issue, nowhere near as much of an issue as I thought. I would like it obviously to look better, when I take a look at the footage and stuff like that, but honestly, when you're playing the game, and if the Switch is your only console, or you want to be able to take it on the go, This is an insane achievement, and more importantly, it's an insanely good game. I mean, just from reading this review, watching this review, this isn't the written one, you'll be getting an idea of what the game's about, and if you've played a little bit or seen a little bit of footage online, you may think that you've got a good idea of what The Witcher 3's about, but honestly, unless you've actually played the game significantly, you're only going to be scratching the surface. And realistically, I'm still, after all my time playing it on PS4, I am still finding things that are brand new and unexpected. And it's just absolutely wonderful. The game continues to surprise you at every single turn, and if you're an RPG fan, frankly, this is an absolute no-brainer. Get this game. I mean, there are so many reasons to support this kind of thing as well, because it's a colossal game that really shouldn't be running on the Switch, but is. And more importantly, CD Projekt Red, they got it all on one cartridge. They could have done a digital download, you know, edition or something like that, but no, the whole game is here. It's all on one cartridge, and I think that is not only to be celebrated, but to be rewarded with financial monies. So buy it.